All right, Tom. First question: how you been lately?
Mm, Overall, super relaxed.
Relaxed. That's good, man. How's the atheist church going so far?
Uh, Pretty good, I guess. I don't really know yet. Still doing research into the tax filing stuff. Standard churches are pretty easy, but since I want to do the um, apartment building thing, that's a little more complex.
Right. Um, and the next question is, what would you do for a Klondike bar, Tom?
Nothing. I don't really like them that much. I like ice cream sandwiches better. I forget what they're called though.
All right, Tom. So I'm gonna start asking questions now. Um, Answer them as best as you can, and whatever. We'll see where it goes. Um, how would you define atheism?
The position that there is no evidence to believe in a god.
All right. Do you act according to what you believe there is no God in, or what you don't believe in, lack belief in God?
Both.
So sometimes you go one way, sometimes the other way, or
Yeah. I mean, if I do not believe that there is a trampoline, I don't jump off the building. So it's a combination of both the fact I do believe that when I hit the ground I will splat, and that I don't believe that there is a trampoline there. Both of those things combine to me not jumping.
all right. Do you think it's inconsistent for someone who lacks belief in God to work against God's existence by attempting to show that God does not exist?
No. Did you ask that one again?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's inconsistent for someone who lacks belief in God to work against God's existence by attempting to show that God does not exist?
No, because they could have a position that's political in nature. So the fact that people believe leads to them doing lots of silly things. So you try to show he doesn't exist to eliminate the people who believe in him, not regardless of whether or not you think he exists.
Okay.
So it might be contradictory if you believe he doesn't exist and are then like trying to uh, prove he doesn't exist for the sake of making him angry. That would be a contradiction.
All right. How sure are you that your atheism properly represents reality?
How sure am I? 90 something percent.
Good answer. Uh, how sure are you that your atheism is correct?
90 something percent. Same question.
All right, cool.
I get to
How
ask, when am I going to publish my book? I haven't found a publisher for the epistemology one, and my co-author for the morality one was hit really, really hard by COVID. Lost a lot of his family and his financial support, so that one's been postponed.
All right, Tom. So, how would you define what truth is?
And corresponds to reality.
All right. Why do you believe your atheism is a justifiable position to hold?
Because we can show that there is no evidence, that all the supposed evidences fail objectively, and things that lack any evidence are most likely imaginary. Things start as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. So it's rational to conclude God does not exist, and it's just a figment of people's imagination.
Are you a materialist or physicalist or what?
Yes, those physicalism is a subset of materialism, specifically only having to do with the mind.
All right. Do you affirm or deny that atheism is a worldview?
Can be, depends on the person who believes it.
All right. Not all atheists are agnostic to Christianity, but for those who are, why the antagon? I'm sorry. Not all atheists are antagonistic to Christianity, but for those who are antagonistic, why the antagonism?
Because religion has profoundly negative impacts in many people's lives, and the religious people who do believe in a God have impacts on political laws that impact people's lives in a way that they don't like, and so they are antagonistic towards the fact that the doctrines of that religion have an impact on society and the way that they live, whether they like it or not.
All right. If you're a one-time believer of the Christian God, what caused you to deny his existence?
Major depression, praying for help and never getting it.
All right. Do you believe the world would be better off without religion?
If we had a positive position to replace it with, then yes. But I don't think, I think that it served its purpose in the past, kind of like spears. So would the world be better to have never had spears? Probably not. It served a purpose in the past, but now we have things that are better. So if we replaced all spears with the new thing, then yes, it would be better.
All right. Do you believe the world would be better off without Christianity?
Same thing.
Okay. Do you believe that a faith in a God or gods is a mental disorder?
Mm, not based off of the clinical definition of mental disorder, but I do think it would, it's probably going to be seen as one in the far future.
All right. But must God be known through the scientific method?
What was the question?
Yeah. Must God be known through the scientific method?
No, any method that can differentiate imagination from reality works. Reiki, uh, Ricky DePere asks, can you elaborate on worldview? Depends on the person, please. Like you can define more things, and like depends on how you define atheism. If you define atheism as the belief God doesn't exist and humanism, atheism plus or whatever, then they have a worldview. So it if you can define atheism however you want, and if you start with that and add more things in, then yes, it can be a worldview.
All right. This one is if you answered yes to the previous question, Tom, which says, how do you avoid a category mistake by requiring material evidence for an immaterial God? But I guess that's not what you believe, that you need a material explanation for a God, right? So,
Well, the argument is that you shouldn't ask for any material consequence or evidence of a god, so no novel testable predictions. But that's false. So this is shifting the burden of proof. It's saying, oh, the fact that we don't have any evidence doesn't disprove a god because you're not supposed to look for evidence in any of the places we know. Haha. So it's not debunked, but that's just shifting the burden of proof. You would still need to provide evidence, and the fact that there's no evidence in the methods that we know are reliable is a good reason to reject your position. Just simply saying it doesn't disprove your God is burden proof fallacy. Sully Sullivan asks, now that you've been blessed by God with hot blondes and your depression is cured, do you believe? No, because it wasn't cured by God. God didn't do it, or at least he didn't do it when I prayed. So would have had to have done it when I prayed for that to happen. Jay Verjara asked, Tom, when a theist is asked to give a defense of a property of his or her deity, is a logical or valid defense saying it's so by definition, why are they committing a fallacy? It's not a fallacy, it's just not justified. So like anybody can define anything in any way they want. Say it's that way by definition, it's just arbitrary. So you can just define it as not that case, and that would be an equally supported position. So it isn't actually evidence to say something is that way by definition. All right, go ahead, Frank.
all right, brother. All right. Let's see. Do we have any purpose as human beings?
Sure. I think there's an objective morality, so I can think the purpose is to try and be happy, I guess.
Is that your purpose, Tom?
Sure.
All right. If we do have purpose, can you, as an atheist, please explain how the purpose is determined?
I think objective morality is determined by looking at the evidence of moral intuition and moral progress, creating a principle to describe the pattern, and make predictions based off the principle. So, exactly the same way as everything in science, everything in reality is discovered.
All right. Where does morality come from?
Laws of physics.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a higher order emergent property. I think we're going to discover that morality is a physical thing, just like we discovered time is a physical thing, even though we both thought both of them were conceptual. Kagito asks, why did you dye your hair? It was the subscriber goal. Once I got to 10,000, people suggested or super chatted me to dye my hair. So,
All right, Tom. Are there moral absolutes?
yes.
All right. If there are moral absolutes, could you name a few of them?
Any involuntary imposition of will is immoral.
All right. Do you believe there's such a thing as evil? If so, what is it?
Uh, sort of. I think evil is a synonymous with immorality. So in that case, yes.
All right. If you believe that the God of the Old Testament is morally bad, by what standard do you judge that he is bad?
The standard that we can discover by following the evidence of moral intuition, moral progress. Drowning babies is objectively immoral. God drowned babies. God is immoral.
All right, good, good. Uh, what would it take you to believe in God?
Novel testable predictions, evidence, same with any position.
All right. What would constitute sufficient evidence for God's existence?
Lots of novel testable predictions.
All right. Must this evidence be rationally based, archaeological, testable in a lab, etc., or what?
Well, it has to differentiate imagination from reality, and the only way I know to do that is with some verifiable scientific means. But if there's some other way, that'd be fine too.
All right. Do you think that a society that is run by Christians or atheists would be safer? Why?
Yes, by atheists, I think it would be safer by looking at the data. So if we just compare countries that have the highest proportion of Christians and highest proportion of atheists, we can see that the atheists are far more peaceful, far less violent, far better in pretty much every social condition. And so run by atheists would be better.
All right, good, good. Do you believe in free will?
No.
Okay, you don't. All right. Uh, let's see. If you affirm evolution that the universe will continue to expand forever, then do you think it is probable that given enough time, brains would evolve to the point of exceeding mere physical limitations and become free of the physical and temporal, and thereby become deity and not be restricted by time and space? If not, why not? How does one lead to the other?
So evolution is just biological, but I'm thinking he means just time here, I guess, or does he mean that will brains naturally evolve beyond the physical? No, it's because it's only evolving physically. If there was a non-physical realm, we might eventually get to the point where they can be non-physical. But as far as we know, there is no such realm. It'll definitely evolve to the point where we can technologically upgrade them to be digital. That'll be cool, but I don't think there's a physical. And if there isn't a physical, then evolution can't evolve to be non-physical.
All right, if you think it's going to be some sort of digital mind, are you saying that it's probable that some sort of God exists already that created this universe?
No, digital as in we're going to make computers and upload our brain to computers. So it doesn't exist yet.
Okay. All right. Have you ever heard of Pascal's wager, and what's your thoughts on
Have I ever heard of Pascal's wager? Yes, I have heard of Pascal's wager.
it?
And I think that the argument is fundamentally flawed because the probability of getting to heaven is exactly the same whether or not God exists. So there could be an evil God who only allows atheists into heaven. There could be a God who only allows people who pick their nose on a Tuesday into heaven. So belief in a God may not get you into heaven any more than belief in potatoes will get you into heaven. And even if there's no God, the natural conditions that allow people into heaven could be equally as probable to be based on some random belief system. So there's no probabilistic difference getting into a God, getting into heaven, whether there's a God or not. Because whether or not there's a God, the probability is still exactly the same. That getting the belief in a God will get you into heaven, as belief in potatoes will get you into heaven.
All right. Where does consciousness come from?
The brain.
The brain. Okay. Do you think atheism will grow in America?
It is definitively we can just measure it doing that.
All right. What are some famous atheists from the past that stand out to you?
Uh, Bertrand Russell, probably. Hume, maybe.
And what? Well, I'll just get to the next one. What are famous arguments against the belief in God that stand out to you?
Mine, the ones I invented, the fact that everything starts as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise, and until you provide evidence, it's rational to conclude that whatever someone is asserting is just a figment of imagination and not a thing in reality.
All right. What are some famous theist arguments that stand out to you?
the Hindu argument that it accurately predicted the age of the universe within like 95% accuracy of saying it was 4.3 billion years old when the Earth was created. That's the best evidence. Mary B asks in the YouTube chat, do you think that some churches do provide helpful benefits like donating to movements, volunteering, and organizing for humanitarian causes? If they were gone, would that be a step back? So I think churches do that, but I think if they were replaced by something better, like my church idea, or secular churches that donate more to science, those would be a far better benefit. So even though churches, which use most of their money on buying music and buildings and things and doing worship services, as opposed to secular organizations which spend most of their money on actually doing the services, it would probably be better to be replaced by that. Kagito, I dyed my hair because it was a subscriber goal for getting 10,000 subscribers.
So what's your next subscriber goal, Tom?
No idea. Whatever people super chat me to do, pretty much.
All right, good, good. All right, Tom. Let's see. What caused the universe to exist?
Uh, the pre-existing quantum field that has always existed.
All right. What explains the fine tuning of the universe?
And interconnected determining forces in nature that are existed prior to the Big Bang.
All right. What's the point of atheist groups? How can you have a community for something you don't believe in?
The point of atheist groups is to try to get rid of a bad ideology that negatively impacts society. And we have a common interest in the fact that certain ideologies, specifically God related, are some of the primary causes to those things.
All right. What is the Euthyphro dilemma? Do you think it's effective?
Yes, the Euthyphro dilemma is something good because God said it's good, or did God say it's good because it's good based off some independent criterion? Yes, it's very effective at showing that something can't be objectively moral simply because God said it's good, and it must be some independent set of facts outside of consciousness that makes it good.
All right, Tom. So this is the last question. What if you're wrong about your atheism?
Then I'm wrong.
If you're wrong, then you're wrong. Like that's it. Like
Yeah.
pretty
Yep.
much. All right,
Yep.
Tom.
Like,
That's all I had. I had 40 questions, so you answered all of them.
cool.
Uh, I don't know if anyone wants to jump on and ask Tom any more questions, or I don't know whatever you want to do from here on. It's fine.